cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of the Top Cut Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. My name, of course, is Sunny. I'm your host. I am here with my co-host, Caleb.
Hello. Hello.
And before we get too far in, we want to thank all of our wonderful patrons. So, a huge thank you to Cam Yang. Dragon Shields are the only protection I use.
That's a problem.
No, that's a good one. Well, it depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
Zephyrus, Austin Johnson, Kane Martin, HGH Cyber, Josh Rosen, Marshawn Jones, Zyphorus, Yeet the Feet, AD, Anthony Lila, Dank Nugs, Earth Machine Best Deck, Epi. Has anyone actually read Toy Vendor? Yes, that is exactly Giant Skyhawk has read it. Broken. I am McLincoln, Mountain Man, Oatmeal Spaghetti, Owen Alvarado, Pig, Rudolph, Sprite, Farter. Stop right there, criminal scum. Buy Dragon Shield now. I swear we didn't put anyone up to this, okay?
That's already two of them. Jesus.
Yeah. Super Ancient Deep CD's Nuts, King Coelacanth. These are getting really
Convoluted?
Yes, but also very there's a word for that. Not in depth, and convoluted, I guess, doesn't feel like quite the right word.
Yeah, not quite the right intonation.
There's a word for that, and I'll come up with it in a minute when it's too late. Tearlament Best Deck. Tearlament's having this floodgate in your mouth. The Hoover Dam is a floodgate. Unbanned number 95. Konami. Understanding and reading are two different things. Virtually Savior's World. Zyngas Khan. Aaron Gardner. Asami Brandon Potter. Dragon Maidenless Behavior. That's still my favorite. I love that name. Jerry Beans, man. Long Ring Longland is my favorite One Piece arc. Nordic Best Deck, Old Man Red, Pin Code 143, Ray Powell, Shockmaster did nothing wrong, slaking it up. Stop crying about Called By, it's balanced. Wait, what? There's no way I can legally say that. Why? Yes, I can say that. VFD's nuts in your mouth. By the way, that is two different names. That was one person that made their name, and then somebody else that completely changed their name just to make it play off the other one. It's amazing. So,
Gotta love it when a plan comes together.
honestly, and it definitely has come together in that particular circumstance. So we also want to thank, of course, the wonderful sponsors. So as I'm sure you heard, there were some Dragon Shield promotional patron names of all things, and we do want to thank Dragon Shield. So Dragon Shield is a sponsor of the podcast. They, of course, make some of the most high-quality TCG accessories in the world because they're one of the largest manufacturers in the world. They make binders, they make sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, all of those things that you need to protect your shiny cardboard. If you're interested in picking up some wonderful Dragon Shield products that give you this awesome hand shuffling noise, you can hear. If you want that awesome hand shuffle feel, be sure to check out Dragon Shield. We have an affiliate link. It does support the podcast if you click on it and shop using that link. And also, if you click our TCG Player affiliate link before you shop, those both help out the podcast a ton. Right now, we're in the process of saving for new microphone arms because ours are pretty much completely worn out, and new microphones. So if you want to support the podcast, no extra cost to you. You can just click the affiliate links down below, and if you want to go the extra mile, get your name read out, you can also join our Patreon. And the last shameless shameless plug and promotion until
last
later.
The last one we promised about halfway through.
Right. Of course, we want to thank the wonderful Millennium Threads. So Millennium Threads is an Etsy store where you can get Yu-Gi-Oh themed products. We now have a coupon code, TOPCUT10, which will be in the description down below, as well as a link to the Etsy store. You can get some amazing products. I know people in the Discord server were very happy. They were getting like Crush Card Virus embroidered hats and hoodies and stuff. And if you use using the code does help support us, and it also gets you 10% off. So be sure to check all of that out. Like I said, there's links to everything down below. And with that said, let's crack on into the meta.
Woo!
So this is something that we don't actually do a lot. Normally, we spend time talking about cards, going over news, different things like that. But if I'm being completely honest, I've been listening to a lot of the Goo Cast. So for those that don't know, not to send our listeners off in other places, but recently Pac has started up his own regular podcast that will be a weekly airing podcast with Nesh. And they are two high-level creators and players, and they want to put so much time into their content creation and actually spending time on the podcast and spending time on their YouTube channels and Twitch streams that they actually left luxury gaming to devote more time to content creation. I think the way that they worded it on the last podcast was they wanted to pursue content creation in a more involved way, and they didn't necessarily think it was the best for them to be in these testing circles with all these high-level players and then withholding good information from the people that take advice from them when they could put that information out there. So in an attempt to be able to put more information out there, and they started to do this thing called the Goo Cast. Now, the Goo Cast is, in my opinion, maybe the best source of in-depth meta analysis, in-depth meta study, and it to go through on a week-by-week basis and take lessons learned from the events of the previous week and apply them in the immediate term and talk about the shifts in the meta, the way the meta's evolving, and different things like that, made me want to kind of go back to what the roots of this podcast were really supposed to be when we created it, right?
Yeah.
So my interest has always been in the meta. I'm a very meta-focused player. I don't play retro formats a ton, kind of just sparingly when we're trying to kill time.
Yeah, and also anytime it's like, I have nothing better going on that weekend, there's a retro tournament, might as well.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm at on retro. I don't really make dedicated trips to places just for Edison or GOAT or Plant Synchro or anything like that. I just show up, and if there's somebody that wants to play, I usually keep Edison, Plant Synchro, and right now I'm working on 2014 Nationals decks. But I usually keep a deck or two for each format with me, but for the most part, I'm there to play meta. I'm there to play high-level competitive. I think there's lessons from those retro formats that can be applied to the meta. Things like conserving resources and labbing out your lines and understanding your combos and your pathways early. But for the most part, I think that the best way to get better at meta is to maybe improve your testing circle and get the right advice from the right people. So we cover a lot of news and notes and things, but I want to spend at least a little bit more time every now and then really exploring the meta, exploring the shifts in the meta and things like that. So what we wanted to do today, or I'll be honest, what I wanted to do, because I don't know how you would describe yourself, Caleb, but I would describe myself as very a meta-oriented player.
Okay, so if you go on like kind of like a gradient of
Sure.
casual to meta, I am on the more meta half, but not all the way over.
Where I am.
Yeah, slapping face first into the meta wall. I'm like about 2 feet behind you, just laughing at you because you just slammed your face into a wall.
Yeah, that's fair. So the way I kind of like to look at it is if you have a, how would you say, to me, the graph of kind of where somebody like prioritizes meta isn't like a linear graph, right?
Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of a gradient scale. Or a
what I mean is,
a good word either.
My mom's a math teacher, so like in my head, it's like it's not a linear graph, which would just be a straight line, right?
Yeah.
You have an x-axis and a y-axis, and the line is just straight line. The more further you go, the higher you are into the meta, right? The more into the meta you are. To me, it's more of a curve. It's a what's the word? Not linear, but a
Uh,
gosh. I know that there's teachers that listen to this podcast and they're just gonna get on Discord and come at me in the morning when this comes out, but
Yeah.
it's late and I had a long day. It is an exponential graph.
There it is.
Okay, so you have an exponential graph or an exponential curve. And the further you go into the meta, the deeper you get into it. So it's at a point where people that aren't in the meta at all are so out of the meta that they don't even know what decks are being played.
Yeah.
And then you go a little bit further and you have people that are maybe aware of the meta. And then you get further in and you have people that they like the meta, enjoy the meta, but they play more rogue and casual strategies. Then you have people that are focused on like tier 2 and tier 3 decks because they maybe don't want to or can't invest a huge amount of time, effort, energy, and money into the meta. And then you have the people that are like all in on the meta.
Yeah, who will gladly spend $1,000
Right.
on a deck every 6 months.
And unfortunately, that's where I am. I can't afford to do it, but that's where I am.
Yeah, it's if you had the money, you would 100% do it.
Yes, and the thing that comes with that is keeping up with the meta on not just a macro level of understanding, well, this deck and this deck and this deck are good, but a micro level of understanding this deck has 6 different versions and this is what each of those versions do. This deck has 4. This is what each of those do. And coincidentally, we're going into the micro level of Spright and Tearlament today.
Yeah, which currently are the 2 best decks in the room. Well, I wouldn't say the 2 best decks, but the 2 newest tier 1 decks in the room.
I would call them the 2 best decks.
That's fair.
I wouldn't even say it's close.
I was trying to be nice with Sword Soul. Nice for Sword Soul, I should say.
love Sword Soul. I'm still playing Sword Soul because I think that Sword Soul is actually a really cool deck with a very cool matchup into both of those decks. Sword Soul is not meta representative at all at the moment, which is crazy because a month or 2 months ago, it was maybe the best deck in the meta.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just it's a thing that's on the brink of being like people are almost considering this deck unplayable, which is crazy because Rika just won Euros.
Yeah.
And Rika is, for all intents and purposes, the same thing as Sword Soul. The thing that Rika does differently is it ends on 1 extra type of interruption. So, a good way to quantify this, Sword Soul typically ends on 2 types of interruption. 3 if you're lucky and you have hand traps.
Yeah.
So Sword Soul is going to end on field disruptions. It's going to end on back row disruption, searchable spell trap, usually, and hopefully hand traps. Rika is going to end on an on-field disruption, a searchable spell trap, and a graveyard effect.
Oh.
And having that extra form of interaction in a format where Dark Ruler is so prevalent, in a deck that can also run Rivalry and Mystic Mine and have in-archetypal outs to both,
Yeah.
or have in-archetypal outs to cards like Mystic Mine and can play around it and play with it and play through it. Those decks are the way that it was explained on I'll be honest, the most recent episode of the GooCast, right? This is where a lot of my information, this is where a lot of the thought processes that I'm having are jumping from. I'll be very honest here. So the deck that could play all of those things the best was kind of the Marcus Patel who won Euros. That was his thought process. So, with that said, I think that there's something to be said for Sword Soul because it is a very interesting deck. I think that it breaks boards maybe better than Rika. Could be wrong about that. I don't know all the ins and outs of Rika.
Yeah.
But I think that Sword Soul has some cool interactions and can play into boards very well. But at the end of the day, Spright and Tillerman are the 2 best decks. And I don't think there's any, I don't think there's even, a way to quantify how much better they are.
Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I was just trying to be nice with Sword Soul.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think if you look at a pie chart right now, it would be somewhere along the lines, I think most people would say, as far as meta representation, if I was going to a tournament right now, I would expect to see 40-ish% Tearlament, 35 to 40% Sprite, and about 20 to 25% other.
Okay. Well, this is kind of very pertinent. Of that percentage, in your opinion, on the 40% of Tearlament, because right now, isn't like Sprite the better deck between the two for now? Do you think that's people? Just going ahead and picking it up now, before the Shizu stuff comes out? Because once that comes out, that's...
I think Sprite was expected to be the better of the two decks. I could be wrong. Sprite is very, very good. The top 8 representation of Sprite in Euros was 50% Sprite in top 8.
Yeah, which is, obviously very well earned.
Yeah, 4 of top 8 in Euros. That's very good. There was 1 in top 4. 3 of them lost in top 4 and top 8.
Interesting.
Yes. And you just shuffled that entire deck in upside down.
I'll fix it. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I gotta have some. I gotta be sitting there playing with someone.
Yeah. I was like watching out of the corner of my eye. I was like, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. I saw the entire deck like just get riffled in upside down. I was like, oh.
Yeah, my bad.
Anyway,
I should probably get like a fidget cube or something.
Oh yeah. So, I think that going into the event, people were expecting Sprite to be the most well-known and the most
well-cited for.
Right, well-cited for, most prepared for, most expected to see deck in the room. Which says something about the fact that its representation was as high as it was.
Yeah.
For people to be planning for it and expecting it, and it just being so dominant anyway, speaks volumes to the power of the deck.
Which is interesting because in my personal experience with the Pokemon card game, real quick.
Sure.
This was back during Sun and Moon Sun and Moon World Championship back at the time. This was an actual World Champion. This is a regional I went to before. A buddy of mine, I went in for VGC. It's not the point. A buddy of mine went in for the actual card game, and he brought what was previously literally like two weeks ago, the best deck in the room.
You're right.
Not a single one of those decks made top that 2 weeks later. No new cards came out. Pokemon doesn't really have a ban list. They have set rotations.
Right.
So everything was the exact same. But people just kind of went, this is the meta. This is the deck to beat.
Exactly.
And specifically built around beating that deck. So it did not have a chance.
Exactly. So I think that there's something to be said for a deck that has that kind of a representation still doing that well.
Yeah.
That's very good. But to me, you almost cannot expect that deck to win the event for that reason.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't. A good deck's going to win, right?
Yeah.
But I think that when you have the entire room targeting that deck, it makes it a bad choice for the event. Whereas if you look at something like the Tearlament deck,
which doesn't have a giant crosshair on its back.
Well, not as much as Sprite.
Yeah, it's got a smaller crosshair.
So, yeah, when you look at a deck like that, the thing that you have to keep in mind about Tearlament versus Sprite, Tearlament has two things that are kind of going against it, really. One is that it's a casino deck. Let's be honest. There's a certain amount of there's the variance in Tearlament is going to be higher than the variance in Sprite.
Just due to the
mechanics of the way the deck works.
Yeah. The whole milling off the top. You got to get lucky that you mill what you need. If you don't, you can't do anything.
Right. And no matter how much you mill, no matter how good you can theoretically mill, mathematically you should mill this amount of the time, whatever. No matter what, there's always going to be a rudimentary certain amount of misses. You just hit it. You just hit it wrong. You miss.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. Now, there are ways to play into that and play around that, but it's a thing. You have to account for it.
Yeah, bro, I feel it every single time I activate Blue Tang's Excavate to search.
Right.
Half the time I hit something, half the time I miss.
Right.
Completely whiff.
The other thing about Tearlament that's really overlooked is, especially with some of the versions that we're actually going to talk about today, the deck has a really, really high skill ceiling. The deck, the way, okay. Let's take a deck like Sprite or Sword Soul. I can better talk about Sword Soul.
Yeah.
Sword Soul is what I would consider to a certain point to be kind of a big brain deck. It
has its moments, being on the opposite side of the table, playing against you specifically with Sword Soul.
Right. So Sword Soul has a lot of different ways that it can go about a lot of different lines. Whether you're going to use the Tengies early, whether you're going to hold them, whether you're going to go into the Sword Soul cards early, hold your normal summon,
whether or not
interaction, whatever.
Yeah, whether or not you're just going to go Shrug, Special, Ecclesia the Virtuous,
Right.
and then whether or not to even bother activating her effect or
leaving her on the field and then normal summoning something. Yeah, it's just there's so many ways that you can go about interacting, especially going second. But the thing about Tearlament is, in Sword Soul, your hands are always going to be, they're going to have a certain amount of linearness just because you only get 5 cards in your opening grip. You only draw 1 card per turn.
Yeah.
Right? You can search all you want, you can add as many cards to your hand as you want, but at the end of the day, you're still looking to grab the same cards first most of the time. You're still wanting to, if I open with an Emergence, a lot of times, 99% of the time, I'm going to go get Mogi.
Yeah, unless
especially
you're already
going first.
Unless you already have one in your hand, in which case you'll go grab like a long one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and to a certain extent, that can inform my opponent about my hand. Mm-hmm. But with Tearlament, because so much of the deck is just scratching off a lottery ticket, you have to completely sequence everything differently every time. You never know whether or not you're going to hit your Tearlaments first, or whether or not you're going to hit a King of the Swamp early, or whether or not you're going to hit a Shaddoll Beast early. You never know.
Yeah.
So as a result, there's so much variance that it elevates the skill ceiling in a way that's really interesting, because it's not that it makes the deck necessarily worse, just sometimes it can be more difficult to pilot. Sometimes it can be linear, and other times it's just really difficult to pilot, and which makes it really difficult to interact with. So Tearlaments is a deck that can be really great, but it can also be just garbage. It just depends on the day. Yeah. I don't know. I think Christian Urana might have had a point. I think it was Christian Urana that tweeted this. He's like, I don't know how in the world anybody can play a casino deck for like 19 or 18 rounds at a YCS and expect to do well. And he's got a point, but I think that some different builds go about it in a different way that can little safer, but
kind of manipulate everything a little bit where you come out on top more often than not.
Right, exactly. So why don't we start with Tearlament, right? We've been focusing on it a lot, and I think we can. We have way less Tearlament to talk about, so we'll knock that out.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about pure Tearlament first.
Yeah.
So pure Tearlament, I say pure.
It's like 90% pure. They run like King of the Swamps, Shaddoll Beasts sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes I've seen a couple builds that also run Squamata, like one copy of Squamata as an additional.
Right. Shaddoll name to hit.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about a quote-unquote pure Tearlament build is that they're always going to run these kind of like staple tech cards, like you said, King of the Swamps, things like that, and they can tech in things like a one Beast and a Squamata. But really, your main forms of interaction with that build, if they're going first, are things like Dragostapalia being on board. Millennium's Restrict is a big one.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll put up a Winda, and sometimes they'll put up a Kaliga if they hit one on your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of things that you need to look out for against that deck. Is you need to understand that if you activate a monster effect, they can use the Havness out of their hand to mill 3 cards,
which can then fire off a bunch of effects and
and also their traps fire off effects too. Mm-hmm. So they have a continuous trap that's basically an imperm, and then they have one that's basically a Book of Moon. So, and then if they go to grave, they do different things.
Yeah.
So I would say that with this version of the deck, it has a lower ceiling, both skill ceiling and power ceiling, but it also has a bit higher of a floor. So less explosive. And for now, I think that this is maybe not quite the worst, but it's not the way I would play the deck.
Yeah.
So the next version I want to talk about is the Despia version.
Okay. Yeah, that's obviously they use like Despia fusions with Albaz and stuff.
Right. So you can use branded fusion, and you can use Fallen of Albaz and then one of your Tearlament monsters, and go into branded plays, and then your Tearlament monsters will also trigger when they're sent from the deck off branded fusion.
Gets your Tillerman stuff going.
Right, exactly.
And then even if you completely whiff, you still have all your branded stuff sitting there, being a threat.
Right, absolutely. So there is a certain amount of high power level with the branded version of the deck. Branded Fusion is one of the most broken cards that's out there right now.
Right up there with Shaddoll Fusion.
I would say it's way more broken than Shaddoll Fusion.
Oh, no, but I'm saying it's up there with it. Shaddoll Fusion is also one of the most powerful fusion spells in the game.
Right. It's like Red Eyes Fusion or even...
Red Eyes Fusion, Fusion Destiny.
Fusion Destiny, yeah.
Shaddoll Fusion, and Branded Fusion. Like the 4 best fusion spells in the entire game.
Honestly, Neos Fusion is also really broken. It just doesn't have a payoff.
Yeah. Well, the nearest thing to payoff it's got is like Grand Neos, and that's about it.
Right, yeah. Well, Rainbow Neos.
Either Grand Neos or Rainbow Neos. Grand Neos is letting you bounce something from your opponent's field back to their hand. Rainbow Neos being big.
I think Rainbow Neos has like a negate effect or something like that. Anyway,
that's
not important. Yeah, not what we're talking about. So the thing about the Despia version of the deck is that I think it gives you a lot more consistency and explosiveness, but at the same time, it's also brickier. So it doesn't really have quite the ways to get the mills off, because I think you cut down on the Tearlament package a little bit.
Yeah, to make sure you can fit everything for the Albaz package.
Yeah, but then again, I don't think the Albaz package is huge either.
Well, I mean, because like the biggest thing the Albaz package really brings to the table, in my opinion, not the biggest, but one of the bigger things,
sure,
is your opponent's got like a big, like let's say they have a Borreload Savage Dragon. You're like,
yeah,
can't out that. There's no way I can do that. Set Albaz, contact views.
Right, yeah.
They can't do anything about it.
Right. The other thing to watch out for with this deck is really Super Poly. Not just with the Albaz version, but like just in general.
Oh yeah. No,
Super Poly is rough because usually they're running Mud Dragon of the Swamp and Garura.
Yeah.
Right.
For the because they have like, I think they have like opposite requirements. I think Mud Dragon is 2 monsters of the same type with different attributes, and I think Garura is 2 monsters of the same attribute but different types.
So Garura, I just happen to have one in front of me.
Yeah.
2 monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names.
Okay, got it.
And I think Mud Dragon is the same attribute.
Different types.
Different type, right.
Yeah, because he can like type modulate.
It's so hilarious that you can attribute modulate.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said type.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I said type. I was thinking attribute.
Yeah. The thing that's so interesting to me about the Sword Soul end board is that if you end on like a Qishao Cheng Ying, it's not really susceptible to, you can't Super Poly those away into either of those.
Yeah. And then they are also different attributes anyway, so you can't even
Mud Dragon.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm saying they're also not dark, so you can't make Dracos Tapelia or Starving Venom Fusion Dragon.
Exactly.
Technically, I think one of the reasons why they run this Squamata, because then you can just like normal summon the Squamata and Super Poly away literally any attribute, depending upon what extra El Shaddai is running.
Right.
Because then it eliminates that as a problem. But the issue is that then you got to run. If you want to hit everything properly, you got to run Amoquilus.
I don't even know what Amoquilus is. It the water one?
It's a water one.
Ugh.
So she's 2,800. She's big. The problem is that as long as she's on the field, she is a constant Abyss Dweller.
Which is terrible for
both players.
Especially for the Tearlament or Shaddoll player. That's terrible.
Yeah. But she's real big. Like 2,800. Plus she's got the El Shaddoll stuff. Yeah, like I said, she is Abyss Dweller, but for both players, because I remember Abyss Dweller is one-sided.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like she's the second worst El Shaddai.
Right. Okay, so if I'm ranking the Tearlament builds, just to kind of like steer us back.
Yeah.
I would say Despia, I think, is actually the weakest. Just because it's already kind of a gamble deck, and then you're adding in like a little bit of brickiness to it, and it's rough. If it doesn't work out, it really doesn't work out.
Yeah, but it also kind of helps.
It raises the power ceiling.
Yeah, but I mean, it also kind of eliminates the possibility of, oh, my opponent made Abyss Dweller, I can't do anything.
I guess, yeah.
It gives you the capability of at least putting on an Albaz fusion and running over the Abyss Dweller.
Yeah.
Like, bare minimum. Which, by itself, can sometimes be exactly what you need to just hit for game.
Yeah. So you have the Despia version, to me, at the bottom. Then you have the pure version, which I think is a little bit more versatile. I just think that you can consistently go into... It's a little bit more consistent with its mills and stuff.
Yeah, because there's not as many things to mill that don't do anything.
Right. The next up, in my opinion, is... I messed up. I gotta go check my list again.
There you go. I had it right in front of me.
Yeah, Tillerman Punk. So the Tillerman Punk is really, really cool.
Well, yeah, because you can do fusion plays, but then if like your mills don't turn out right, you can just shrug and start doing Punk synchro plays.
Yeah, exactly. So the Punk engine in the deck kind of gives it a different direction that it can steer. And I think that's another way that you raise the power ceiling. And I don't think that it lowers the floor. I don't think it's quite as bricky. It gives you another decent normal summon, because otherwise your only decent normal summon is Rhinoheart.
Yeah.
And also you have an easy line into Chaos Ruler to mill 5 off the top.
Yeah, and then add a light or dark, but doesn't matter, because then you're going to get a bunch of effects off anyway, as long as you're not unlucky and just mill...
a single dark, and you have to add it to your hand.
Yeah. Yeah, like you mill like the one you needed to mill, and that's the only viable target you mill, which is unfortunate. Mill like Gamma, Driver, Crow, the one you want, and like in a...
Right.
I don't know.
Well, Crow is dark, but...
like another... Oh, yeah. You get what I mean.
Yeah, but... I think that the... I'll be honest. This is probably the deck in the entirety of today's episode. The Punk version of this deck is the deck I probably know the least about. But the Punk version does give you pretty decent lines to get into Curious more easily. So having access to Curious is really key. But there's another version of the deck that does it even better, which is the Danger build.
Woo!
I think that the Danger Curious build is probably the best version of Tearlament at this time.
Yeah.
Because the ability to either very powerfully and consistently go into Curious, and then very consistently using Curious be able to mill out your monsters, that's powerful. The ability to not have to rely on the Gamba.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, there's always the option of, oh no, I opened a bunch of monsters that I want discarded. And a danger monster.
Right.
Just set everything you don't want discarded and then go, yeah, effect of the danger.
Exactly.
So then no matter what, you're winning.
Yep, exactly.
Because you'll either discard the danger, get its effect, which could be anything from Bigfoot Pop, Jackalope special summoning another one, Tsuchinoko special summoning itself.
Right.
Or Thunderbird, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. And even the bad dangers still they'd still do the job of pitching one.
Yeah, reveal, and then your opponent, the one gets randomly selected to be discarded.
Right. I really do think, though, that having consistent lines into Curious to mill not only your Tearlament cards, but also if you wanted to mill something other than Tearlaments, because let's say your engine is all the way online already, you're not worried about trying to mill more, you can do something like send a Snow. Mm-hmm. Or you can send one of your trap cards to go into a different direction. Curious just gives you the ability to do so many things so consistently and so powerfully. So
in addition to what you would normally do.
Yes, and I think that the Danger build gives you a little bit more options if your hand is bricked up full of Tearlament cards.
Yeah.
So, of these, like I said, I would rank them the Danger Tearlament at the top. I think that that's the best version of the deck until the Ishizu stuff comes out. Then you have the Punk version then you have the pure version, and then you have the Despia version. And I would say that any version of Tearlament that you play, I would not play a hand traps. I don't think the hand traps perform well in the deck. I think that
you're just going to mill them.
Yeah, and I think you're better off with a different form of interruption and board breakers and things. So
yeah, or like, you know, just kind of sitting on a pair of Dracos Topelias and a Millenniumizer Strict, and then your opponent started making a window before they have a chance to normal summon.
Well, that's really dangerous. If you, but see that's right there. That's the weakness of the pure build. Mm-hmm. Is that it plays really, really, really hard into Dark Ruler No More, which is such an incredibly prevalent card at the moment.
Well, because like even if with that kind of build though, even if your opponent that kind of board, even if your opponent activates Dark Ruler No More, you can just after it resolves, you can then just make a window and sit on it.
You could, right? It just depends on how you're able to interact with your opponent.
Yeah. I saw one game where the Tillerman player ended on a Millennium Eyes and one Dracos Topelia, and their opponent, first thing they did, Dark Ruler No More, and they went, it's good. And after it, they activated something and just went and
probably Havness to mill 3.
Yeah, and then just kind of went off, made another Dracos Topelia unnegated, and the window.
Right. Yeah. The deck is cool. Having ways to play around it is cool. Just be better and have Call by the Grave and DD Crow for all their effects that activate in the grave, and you just win. It's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
5-head. Okay, so let's take just a moment to thank our sponsor. So a huge thank you to ETB Games in Alexandria, Louisiana.
Super cool dudes.
Absolutely. ETB is your one-stop shop for all of your card game needs. They have all of your singles and sealed product, as well as all of your deck boxes, sleeves, playmats, binders, etc. for all the card games that you love. They also have everything that you need for your tabletop gaming needs. You can get everything that you need for your Pathfinder games, your Dungeons & Dragons, whatever, figurines, full playmats, dice, things like that. Get it all there. Be sure to check out ETB Games. Their link is in the description down below. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Sprite. Sprite is the other big deck in the room. People really expect Sprite to have the highest representation on a day-by-day basis.
And it does.
Sure. So let's talk about kind of what makes Sprite tick and the things that we expect to see with it. So there's about 6 different builds. 5 or 6 different builds of Sprite.
Yeah.
That you can reasonably expect to see on a
plus or minus, because then there's also like the weird combinations of builds where they're running like a little bit of this build, a little bit of that build.
Right. You could literally see any of the 5 that I'm about to list. You could see any of them
mixed.
Well, you could see any of them on a feature match at YCS Rio this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Reasonably.
Oh,
or you could see them at the Child Slime Monthly. These are all very good builds that you could just see.
Yep.
So, and they all kind of do close to the same thing that we're going to talk about, but there's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, they're all... So, for example, we have Sprite Diva, right?
It's Sprite, but Deep Sea Diva.
Right, so you're running Sprite, and most of these Sprites are all running a Frog engine, so 3 swaps, 1 Ronin. And
you just assume they all have frogs.
Yeah, and maybe a dupe. And I'll say if they don't have frogs, but most of the ones we're going to talk about do. So you're running your Sprite package, 3 Jets, 3 Blues, the Carrot, the Red, the Starters, the Smasher, etc. You're also running the Frog engine, like I said, 1 Ronin, 3 swaps, maybe a dupe, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
And this build is going to run 3 Deep Sea Diva. So,
on a rare occasion, you'll see 3 Deep Sea Diva, 1 Deep Sea Sentry as just another target for the Diva.
So I know that some of them were doing the Atlantean
Dragoon?
Marksman, maybe? Heavy Infantry. Atlantean Heavy Infantry.
Yeah, Heavy Infantry, yeah.
It's the level 2 that you can summon off Diva, and then when you activate, if you summon it off Diva and then go straight into Gigantic Sprite, you can activate Gigantic Sprite, and then when you detach later as part of the effect, you can detach the Heavy Infantry and then get a pop.
Oh, is Gigantic Sprite water?
No.
Oh, I thought it had to be like sent to graveyard for the effect of a water monster.
Or
what am I thinking of?
I think it just has to be. Am I just wrong? Is it water? Well then, why does it get? Hold on.
I'm looking at heavy infantry.
There's an absolutely an
Like I said, I could also just be misremembering the card. You can only get this for one turn. When this card is sent to the graveyard for the activation of water monster's effect, target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy the target. To be fair,
I swear there's a way to trigger it. I swear, okay?
to be fair, theoretically, you could, like, if you have 2 divas in your hand, you can normal summon 1 diva, activate its effect, special summon the heavy infantry, effective heavy infantry to normal summon the other diva, effect to bring out the second diva.
There's a way to do it. I forget what it is. I'm just going to be honest. I forgot. There's a way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a way to really abuse heavy infantry for the sake of getting a pop. Anyway, the point is sometimes they'll run a heavy infantry, whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a diva package. And something like a typical line would be you can go normal summon Deep Sea Diva, special summon Deep Sea Diva, use those to make Halki Fibrax. Halki Fibrax effects summon another diva. Then you go the Diva and the Halki Fibrax to summon a Gigantic. Gigantic effect, summon a blue. Then you do blue and blue search jet summon, and search a starter. And then you go overlay blue and jet to make Cat Shark. And then detach one from Cat Shark, make it to where Gigantic Sprite can attack twice.
Yeah.
And Gigantic Sprite, or no, it doubles the attack. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Gigantic Sprite at that point is 6,400 attack. Because its original attack doubles for its own effect because it used Hulk. And then oh gosh. I'm thinking too hard.
Yeah, and then the Cat Shark doubles it again,
making it 64, and then that cat is 6,900. Nice. And then you can do Sprite Starter, and that's, I think, blue, for example, if you just summon blue out the deck, is another 1,100.
Yeah.
It's an OTK.
Yeah. And that's just literally off of having like
one Deep Sea Diva. That's it.
One diva, and then like one extra card to get that extra little 1,100 in.
No, you searched it mid combo.
Oh, I thought you used the starter to get the.
Say normal summon diva, special diva.
Make Hulk, get the third diva.
Make Gigantic summon blue summon jet search starter.
Oh, and then and
then
make
overlay
Cat Shark,
and then make Cat Shark with those two, and then the starter is your next one.
Yeah, got it. Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's cool OTK lines in the deck. And then also, you can go something along the lines of Deep Sea Diva, make, what's it called? Deep Sea Diva, make Halki Fibrax, normal, make Hulk. And then you can, however, there's a way you mill out like a substitute, or not substitute, a substitute, oh my god. You mill out a, oh my goodness.
I think
it's a way you go into Swap Frog lines, and then you can use Hulk to summon.
I think it's Giant summons out Swap Frog, and then effect a Swap Frog to mill Ronan.
No, well, hold on.
Or something like that.
You go.
Listeners just trying to figure out these lines.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head after working all day. It's like normal summon diva, special summon another diva. If you have a 2 in hand, you can special a 2, like one of your other Sprite cards.
Yeah, jet, blue, carrot,
etc.
Whatever.
And then you make Hulk, and then after Hulk, you use Hulk to summon an Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. And then you take the 2 and the Hulk that you have on board, summon Gigantic summon Swap effect send Ronan, and you can use Ronan to bounce the Ash Blossom back to your hand.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a way to basically search for a hand trap.
Yes.
Any tuner hand trap.
Correct. So Ash Blossom, Ghost Bell are probably the most relevant ones right now.
Effect Veiler.
Right.
Ghost Ogre if you're in the mirror.
Right.
Cherries if you're in the mirror, actually.
Right, and realistically, there you have a way. There's ways to extend with it even more to where you can like have the elf on board too.
Yeah.
But just off the top of my head, that's just what comes to mind.
Yeah, and like it probably requires having more of the sprites in hand.
Well, it's like if you have blue, if the blue is the one you have, you can like normal diva, special blue, blue search jet, like special jet, search starter, and then you've got like 4 2s on board.
Yeah.
Right, and then you can just start linking and doing different things and doing it your gigantic.
Yeah. Then you can kind of figure it out from there.
I think that the diva build gives the most explosiveness. It's also probably the easiest to telegraph.
Yes, because you're going to normal summon that diva, and that's going to immediately tell your opponent what you're playing.
Well, it's not just that it'll tell your opponent what you're playing. It'll also more than likely, how do I say this? I think that the diva build can be a little brickier because you're running usually 16 to 18 hand traps. So to me, there's other builds. Also, the diva build, if your board is broken, there's not a lot of recursion in the deck.
Yeah, there's no recovery.
Which I mean, there
play.
is. There is. But not as much as something like the Nimble Beaver build.
Which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, so the Nimble Beaver build doesn't quite have the explosiveness of the Halki Fibrax lines, but the Nimble Beaver, when it's summoned, can summon another one from deck or grave.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to have one come in from grave, and sometimes they'll play the Nimble Angler, which when it's sent from hand or grave to the hand or deck to grave, you can do the what do you call it? Nimble Angler special summons 2 Nimble monsters.
Yeah,
level
get
3 or
2
lower Nimbles.
Yeah, get 2 beavers out.
Right, and then you can go into your lines.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different ways to play it. I know I saw one of those, the Nimble version in top 8, I want to say, lost to Altergeist. Lars, shout out Lars for making everybody want to ban mine more than they ever did. So the ability to have that extra recursion and still have most of your normal lines is cool. The next version to talk about is the Dark Beckoning Beast build,
which is hilarious to me.
Yeah, Dark Beckoning Beast is really similar to the Nimble Beaver version, honestly. It's just, I think it baits interaction a little easier.
Yeah.
Because you can just normal summon Dark Beckoning Beast, search the spell, activate the spell, search another one, special the beast. And it's not a lot of commitment. It's not a lot of deck size.
It's 3 cards.
Yes. 4. You got 2 spells, 2 beasts.
Oh, got it.
And you can search. You can't just search the beast. You can also add it back from grave.
Okay, yeah.
So that also helps with the recursion.
Yeah. And then of course the continuous spell, which escapes you at the moment, can also add the Dark Beckoning Beast to your hand. Then normal summon, grab the other beast, especially the other beast, and just go. Yeah. So it's basically you get one of those 4 cards in your hand, you got full combo.
Something like that. Yeah. Now the other thing is you can also run like an adventure package. So
also hilarious to me.
Oh, well, okay. Actually, I'm going to come back. Dark Beckoning Beast and Nimble Beaver to me are really, really similar. I would prefer the Beaver package over the Beast package because Beavers are cooler. I think realistically, the Dark Beckoning Beast package might actually be a little stronger.
But not by a lot.
But Beavers are cooler, and that's worth it to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because with the Beaver package, you also have the Angle.
Yeah, you have the Angler. Yeah.
Which can then also give you a backup play. So, like, even if you summon a Beaver, and they negate the Beaver, it's like, oh no, Angler effect.
Right.
And you get 2 Beavers out anyway.
Yeah. So I think that they all have their own pros and cons. I think that the Diva Hero. Oh my god, I've been playing. I said earlier I don't play that much retro. Every time I say Diva, I just instinctually put
Hero next.
Hero behind it because I played it in Edison.
Not only that, it's like one of exactly 2 times where Diva's been viable.
No, not viable
before,
but like really crazy good.
Yeah, before, not including now.
It's always had extensive meta playability. Always.
Yeah, but the issue is how it doesn't always have a deck that can actively,
Abuse it.
In the past, the only decks I've really been able to abuse it before Sprite was Diva Hero,
which was not a deck at the time.
Yeah, that was kind of in hindsight, this deck could have existed and probably should have.
Right.
And what was the other one called? It was like the water pile, where it was like Atlanteans and Mermail and Deep Sea Divas and Mulan Glacia.
Right.
Whatever that deck was. I don't remember. I think people just call it straight up Mermail.
Just water. So, I think of the three, I think Diva's probably the best. And if we're talking about like actually good, probably Dark Beckoning Beast and then Nimble Beaver. Although I think those two are like tied.
Now, keep in mind that these these extra extensions, these extra packages that you could run these decks were only like four cards a piece, give or take.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to, you could theoretically run, well, I'm gonna run a Diva package and the Dark Beckoning Beast package. I got both options.
So,
but you're not going to be running as many hand traps, which...
Yeah, but that's almost kind of like a bad thing in the deck, is that you run so many hand traps. The deck runs like 18 hand traps or like defensive cards a lot of the time, and it can really clog your hands.
Yeah. So if you're like, I don't like having so many hand traps, you entirely have the option to back off on your hand trap lineup a little bit and add in another package. Like let's say you're running a Diva, you can just run it. You can just also add in the Beavers, or just add in the Dark Beckoning Beasts. I personally would still do Beaver if I'm also doing the... Like, I personally would only do the Diva and the Beavers because they're both water, which gives you a capability to play under Gozen.
Yes.
Not a great one, but it gives you one, because then you can also... Because Hulk is water, summon out... you still have plays.
So, something else you can do is you can run Sprite Adventure. I talked about this a second ago.
Yeah.
So, Sprite Adventure is... I don't know if it's the best way to play the deck, because it does some weird things that are different, but it is a very good way to play the deck.
Yeah, because even if your opponent is able to completely stop your like attempt to push to put up a board, you have all your adventure stuff to either insulate your combo, or you just end on a Griffin Rider pass.
Yeah, the thing about the adventure build is, if you go full combo and you end on your normal Sprite board, which would be like the
Elf pointing at Toad
and the Gigantic or something like that. So if you're looking at that board and then you add in Token Griffin Rider, the board's like crazy. The issue is that you have to play 9 to 10 extra non-engine cards.
Yes.
And it cuts down on your hand traps a lot, which...
For no extra payoff to your main engine.
Right. So, the weird thing about it is that you have to be careful. Because to me, this deck actually, this version, to me, actually has the highest ceiling. It's the strongest. It helps you get more kill lines, and it helps you break boards.
Yeah, but it also gives you the option to, if you're like, this is the only way I can really do this, also gives you the opportunity to either bait hand traps or even insulate yourself from them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does all of that. It baits hand traps, it insulates, it makes your end board stronger. Yeah. It helps you break boards. It's so good. It's so good. But it has one giant glaring issue.
Well, one other advantage that you do have with that I just thought of, that's not like a big advantage, but it is a thing you have to consider.
Right.
Is the ability to like attempt to go with your adventure stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And let's say you're like, okay, cool, I have like, I'm gonna assume my opponent has like I know my opponent has this in their hand because they searched it and they have 2 back row. Well, let's say they completely stop your adventure stuff and using stuff you didn't even know they had, and they're still sitting on stuff that'll just straight up stop your combo.
Yeah.
You can just go, cool, game 2. And they don't know you're playing Sprite. All they know is you have Adventure.
Right. So,
which is a lot of decks.
I would say that the biggest issue for me with the Adventure build is that the deck dies very, 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 very hard to Dark Ruler No More, which is an incredibly prevalent card in the format.
I personally would also count Forbidden Droplet in there as well.
Yeah, to a point. At that point, they have to negate like at least three cards with Droplet, and then you still have probably like a Smasher or something, and you still have interaction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, you still have like Smasher and other interaction.
Yeah.
Spell Trap interaction. I would still consider it though at like an asterisk. It's there, but you're probably not going to encounter it. But it is there, and it should be mentioned, so that way you're not sitting there like, I got a full board, and they activate Dark Lord Warrior like Solemn Judgment, haha.
I mean, some people in the Adventure build are citing Solemn Judgment specifically for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, just something to keep in mind, that's my biggest issue. I think that the deck actually has the most going for it out of all the versions, but it also has maybe the biggest drawback.
Yeah.
It doesn't... I think that the Diva build plays through things well, and it puts up a good board, lots of recursion, but it also runs like 18 hand traps. So there's a great chance that you have like 2 to 3 hand traps in your hand, and if they Dark Ruler you still have some way to interact.
Yeah, you still have the Smash. If you didn't have to search it, you still have the Smasher. There are other things you can do on top of your normal combo.
So the last one that I want to talk about here is Sprite Live Twins. I think that this is a very, very underlooked build of this deck.
Very underrated.
Yeah, so all the Live Twin monsters are level 2, and they revolve around, well, they have Link 1s, but also their Link 2s are really kind of where a lot of their power is.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to climb up into their Link 4 to both use it in a controlling game state kind of way, as well as a, how would I say, kind of...
Oh, they can go into their Link 4 during your turn.
Right, and use it to maintain advantage, pop cards on your field, draw cards, and just keep going.
And then, let's say you if you've been out their board, they can just go, cool, my turn. Effects to bring back Lilla and Kiss a Kill. Make Trouble Sunny. Boom for a crap ton of damage.
3,300.
Effect to split them. Boom, boom. And then main phase 2, make a new Trouble Sunny.
Right. It's kind of crazy, really. So, I think that the deck, if I'm not mistaken, the deck has a way to out-mine in engine, which is cool. And just in general, it's strong. So, of them, I think I would probably, if I'm building the deck right now, with no ban list fears, because I think there's a legitimate amount of ban list fear surrounding the Adventure Engine, I think Adventure Engine would probably be the way to go. And it's got its flaws and it's got its issues, but I maybe play 45 cards to kind of counteract the bricks.
Yeah.
Maybe play a couple extra hand traps to kind of
insulate a little bit.
Right, insulate against the main drawbacks of the engine.
Actually, I think the Live Twin out to Mystic Mine is just their spell card. There's on time they summon a Lilla or Kiss a Kill. Their opponent burns and they gain life points, and it's like, sure, let's go into time. I'm going to win, but
potentially, yeah. So the Live Twins version is very good, very underrated,
very cool in my opinion.
Yeah, and maybe the most underrated version of that deck. So ranking them is so hard because they're so similar, and they're all so good. I would maybe rank. I'd probably still go Diva 1 because I think that deck has the highest, maybe potentially the highest combo ceiling as far as the different ways that you can go with it, as the different lines with how Key Fire Racks are just so powerful to me. and then probably Adventure, and then Live Twins, and then Beaver, and then Dark Beckoning Beast.
I would put Beaver and Dark Beckoning Beast though on like the exact same.
Yeah, tied.
Because they almost do literally the exact same thing.
It's just that Beavers are just cooler.
Yeah. You like normal summon one monster, which fetches another one for you, and you have 2 level 2s. Well, actually, that's also what Diva does.
Yeah, but Diva's a tuner.
Yeah, but Diva,
Hulk.
Diva has the added benefit of being a tuner.
Yeah, and there are other versions of these decks that we haven't really discussed. Just for posterity's sake. Nimble Beaver says, when this card is normal summon, you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower Nimble monster from your deck or graveyard. So
we'll just let you fetch the Angler, who can then, when you go link to...
No. Hand or... It has to be sent from hand or deck. So you can normal summon Beaver, special summon another Beaver.
Yeah.
Or you can do something like a Foolish Burial to send the Angler, and Angler summon 2 Beavers. Right. So... But honestly, I'd probably put Beaver at the bottom. But Beavers are cool, so, I'll tie them. There's some other ways to play Sprite. We did mention Sprite Tri Brigade. I think that is a super cool deck. I know it got 3rd place at a remote duel regional over the weekend.
Yep, because Kit and Karis are level 2.
Yep, so you can like normal summon Rescue Cat and go full combo. Or if you have double Karis, I saw a line with double Karis that ended on like Elf with a maybe Elf Gigantic with a set Revolt and something else. Crazy hand. But they just 2 Karis.
But they had to run a Lich Heart, I think is the name of it.
Yeah, Triclaw Rykard.
Yeah, because it's a Link 1 Beast Warrior.
Right. So you can go like activate Karis, send Karis, activate Karis on field, summon the Rykard, then link 2 into Elf, activate Elf, summon back a Karis, oh man, what was it?
Something like that. Something along those lines. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, honestly, but
yeah, it's like super cool.
The really dangerous part about that deck is you have so many things that lock you. So your Sprite Starter and your Gigantic both lock you into level rank or link 2s.
Yeah, and then
all of your Tri Brigade effects lock you into only using
Beast Warriors, and Winged Beast for link material.
Right. And then you also have Tri Brigade Bear Brom. You have to do last because it locks you into only special summoning Tri Brigade monsters from the X deck or something like that.
Yeah, to go and fetch the Revolt. Yeah,
right.
So that way you can make the Sure Egg
correct on your turn.
Vanish on your opponent's turn.
You also have a Sprite Synchro build, which relies on basically having Hulky Fibrax summon out a Hopier Squadron, activate Hopier Squadron to summon out a Herald of Arclight on your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
So, and there's different ways to in that deck.
Nasty.
Right. There's also different ways in that deck to like go up into a Baron and stuff. So that deck's cool. I think there's some bricks in it though, and it's just less consistent.
Not as good. It's cool, not as good.
Yeah, and then Tearlament has its build we didn't talk about. There's like a Tearlament Telefon FDK deck that we didn't talk about at all. But
without the Duke Devlin stuff, Telefon just really isn't worth it.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
Once you get the Duke Devlin stuff, it'll be more worth it, but in its own dedicated strategy.
Right. Okay, so that'll wrap us up for today's episode. We're kind of over on time. We'll skip mailbag. We'll come back to it next week.
Yeah.
Also, I may or may not have forgotten to ask for mailbag questions. But we had a lot to cover, and
we actually do have a couple of them that people had already posted. Just like, I just thought of this in our Discord. But we don't have time to answer this.
Yeah, I would really like to just kind of let them save up for now.
Yeah, let them stock up so we have like a nice backlog of them.
For sure. So, in the meantime, we want to, of course, thank again. Okay, real quick. We'll do one. This is a good one.
Okay.
Billy Joel or Elton John, who do you prefer to listen to?
Elton John.
And it's not even close. I respect Billy Joel. I admire Elton John.
That's fair. I was just like, it's just Elton John. And the thing that really, really solidified Elton John as the better of the two for me
is the existence of Rocket Man.
No, actually.
The existence of the entire Lion King soundtrack.
No. Because like those two solidified Elton John as his own individual
legend.
as opposed to the legend, the other
Billy Joel.
Yeah, Billy Joel.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
can't even remember his name.
But the thing really
Don't come at me with this. It's Elton John, and it's not close.
Like the thing that really solidified it though in my head, as in yes, Elton John is the better, probably the best of his entire genre, was entirely due to his appearance in the Gorillaz' Pink Ghost.
Good song. Okay, well, thank you all so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Be sure to check out the Team Dark Arm Dealings YouTube channel for tournament coverage of the tournaments that we go to. Check out ETB Games, our locals. Be sure to check out, of course, the one and only Millennium Threads. And, of course, if you want to support the podcast, check out the affiliate links as well as our Patreon. And please, for those that are still here, join our Discord server. We want more people to join our Discord server. It's something that we're really focused on right now.
Yeah, we share memes all the time.
Right. We share memes. We go over deck ideas. We share memes. We talk about what's happening in the community, and we share memes.
And we also trade. We do trades
and we trade memes.
Yeah, and we have locals.
And we trade memes.
Yeah, at the locals.
Yeah. So be sure to check it out. We do remote duel locals. They're free every Thursday. We just had the tournament tonight. It was great. But somebody needs to come in because Benji, who runs the Legacy Crusaders YouTube channel, shout outs, he keeps dominating.
Yeah.
So if somebody could come in and help us fix that, it would help out.
Maybe figuratively knock him down a peg or two.
Right. Well, I mean, figuratively, literally, whatever. But also, the last thing that I'll put into this episode, we did finally get a P.O. box.
Woo!
People have been asking us to get a P.O. box for a long time, and we finally went ahead and did it. We made the investment. So if you want to send us stuff, we do have the P.O. box. The link should be down below. We also updated our Amazon wish list. So if you're feeling really, really generous, please be sure to
That's out there for
check
you.
that out. Right. So thank you all so much for listening and supporting the podcast. I very genuinely love y'all all. Be sure to check out the GooCast. Like I said, it's great and stuff. And I'll stop right now. In the meantime, hey, have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care, everybody.